In this video, we're going to be looking at how we can take this boring piece of text right here and do this magic with it. Hello, my front-end friends, and welcome back for yet another video. Thank you so much for coming to join me. And if you are new to my channel, my name is Kevin, and here at my channel, I hope you fall madly, deeply in love with CSS. And if not madly, deeply in love with it, at least to be a little bit less frustrated by it. And this week, we're doing that by diving into the wonderful world that is 3D CSS, which is something that I'm not actually super comfortable with. So to help you fall in love with CSS, Amit is coming on to join me and help us learn together how we can do this type of thing with our text. You might have already seen another video that I did with Amit where we learned how to take a cube, spin it into a 3D space, and have a ball bouncing on top of it. That was really, really cool and a lot of fun. Since then, he's been playing a lot with 3D text, sharing all sorts of really cool things that he was up to. And so I thought it would be a lot of fun to have him on. It's always super interesting to see how this stuff is actually done. So yeah, let's go and dive right into it. So here I am with Amit. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me for this. I'm really looking forward to it. The last one was an absolute blast and I definitely learned a lot. So I'm looking forward to what you have to teach us today.
Thank you. I'm actually excited to be here again. So last time we talked about a lot about 3D and lighting and shading and a lot of perspective. Today we're actually going to talk about text. The concept we're going to talk about today actually started a few months back when I wondered how to wrap a text around an object. I tried. Actually, my first attempt was with GSAP. They have the splitter that split different letters, and it kind of worked okay, but it worked better with monospace letters, which makes sense. So I had a thought of, like, instead of the splitting the letters, splitting the whole div into panels, okay, and then each panel will display a segment of the text. So the first concept made me think of a lot of divs with a lot of text inside, and I didn't like the concept, but then I thought, oh, I can actually solve it using something that we both like, pseudo-elements. So I actually experimented a lot with this method. So if you can just put my screen on, just a few examples I've done with this method. So it's something like that. So we can actually see the panel. We'll zoom in a bit in this one. This is the Daily Planet, if you like Superman. The same concept. This is actually, again, the same concept. It's just different panels that just move up and down instead of in rotation. And even this this pen, again, it's just panels that's turning and dropping down. Okay, and so we're actually gonna let's build one, and later on we're actually gonna see some more examples. Okay?
Yeah, that just looks so cool. I love it so much.
Thank you. And of course, everything is with CSS. Obviously, we didn't mention it. Obviously, everything is just pure CSS and SAS, because we are going to use some loops. Start with it's a fresh new pen. We don't have nothing here. Let's just add a very simple centering to the body. Let's add a background color. Background color of black. Let's add a color of white. We're going to use a display of grid and place items center. Just so everything will be in the center. Oh, we need you to use min height. Again, just to put everything in center. So let's go to the HTML. And you know what? Do you want to write?
Sure. Yep. I'm ready to go.
All we need is just a container div. Let's call it a banner. Or it can be a container. And inside we'll have 5 panels. We're going to start with 5. Later on, we're going to do some more.
So just...
Yeah, let's give them a class, just so it would be easier to read. Panel.
Panel. Perfect.
Yeah.
5. There we go.
Exactly. That's it. So that's our HTML for now. And let's go to our CSS. We'll have a class of panel. Yeah. And just so we can see it, let's have no, not the background. Actually, let's have a width and a height of 100 pixel, just so And let's do a border, actually. Let's border of 1 pixel, right? Yeah. So now we can see them, but we want them to be side by side. So let's, here in the banner, we're going to give them, for now, we're going to give them a display flex, just so it's side by side. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it a bit bigger. Yeah. Now again, we're going to add the text using pseudo-elements. It can be after or before, and it's actually easier that way because that way we can animate and change the text using animation. We're going to see example of how to animate text later on. Oh, you just need one of them.
Oh, okay, cool. Makes life easier.
Yeah, and the content, let's say for now. Okay, so now we can actually see the hello world here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's play around with the text. I want it to be bigger. I actually want the text to span all across the banner. So let's say 100 pixels. So now it's big. And okay. First of all, before we're gonna fix the width, we're actually gonna add a position absolute to each pseudo element, and we're going to add a position relative to the panel because the position of the pseudo element would be relative to the panel. And now, as for the width, we need to set a width of max content because we want it to spread. We don't want to drop a line, break a line exactly. And the last thing we need to do is right here in the panel. We said we want each panel to present just a segment of the text, so we're going to add an overflow of hidden. Okay, so far so good. We actually can see that each panel have now a segment of the text, but we don't have the right segment, obviously. So if you think about it for a second, the text is absolute relative to the panel. And if you look just at the second cube right here, the second panel right here, right now it starts here in this corner, right? But we need to move it backwards one width of a panel, okay? And the third one, we need to move it back two width of a panel, and again. So we can actually do it using a loop.
No, you go for it. You go for it. I'm just gonna say, just because last time when we did something, a few people were asking because we were using nesting on the last one we did. So just for anybody who's not familiar, this is with Sass. So this isn't regular CSS that we can do, but we'll look at the code that it outputs. It just lets us write a lot more code in a lot less time by having a loop here.
Just we're actually going to use the width as a variable because we're gonna let's do width. It's 100 pixel, so now the width will be width, and we say dot panel amp file supposed to be +1. So I'm selecting each time a different panel. In 0 it's the first one, in 2 it's the second one, and so on.
Yeah.
And for each panel, I'm going to give a variable of left, and the left is, as we said, the width times the index, and of course times -1 because we want to move it backwards. Yeah, so we have the variable left. Okay, so we're going to come here to the panel to the before because the before is the absolute, and we're going to say that the left equals to left. And now, if we done everything right, so here we have everything. So if you're going to comment on the border just for a second, we can see that the text is absolutely it looks like a regular text, but it's actually divided into 5 panels, so we can animate and do everything we want with each panel individually. So we're going to see it in a second, but we can see that the text is a bit cut here. Okay, so we can actually adjust it very easily. We can either, let's put the border back for a second. We can either just make excuse me, I meant to make the font size. Either make the font size a bit smaller, for
Yeah.
example, 95%, 95 pixels. Or let's say we can actually make it bigger, and we can then change the width. Uh, let's say the width is 120 pixels, so 125 pixels. So it's very easy, and everything we do, the text will remain the same thing because we're just moving the same variables. Okay, but let's make it 100 again, and let's say the font size would be 96. Yeah, that's okay.
That's really cool. It's so
You see,
simple, but it's like
it's very easy to do all the adjustments. Like if you want to change the fonts, obviously everything's going to change, but it's very easy to do these adjustments. It's with any fonts you want to use. You started to ask. You started to have.
no, I was just gonna say that like the when you made all the panels, I was sitting there going like, how exactly we're gonna get it, and it's such a simple solution at the end that, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're actually going to see example in the end that we're dividing the panels into X and Y, so it can be more complicated, but we're going to stay simple for now. And we actually let's when I like to animate them for example, I can make in left of left I can make a top, and the top can be let's say random of 30 pixels. So now I can also have a top here. Now each panel is going to be different height. We can adjust the height,
Yeah.
but you got the general idea. But let's remove it, and we'll actually let's get back to the HTML because I want to add panels. So I'm going to add let's say 19 panels because I want to have 24 in total. Okay, so 19 panels. So here we need to change this one to 24, and we're going to make the width a lot smaller. For example, 25. It can actually be 22, maybe. Yeah, sorry, gonna do some trial and error here. Yeah, so let's get rid of the border, and you know, let's add hue. Okay, so but by the way, I said we're not gonna do math. If you want to, if you have like 24 parts of something and you want to divide it into 360 degrees, you don't want to do all the math. All you need to do is to take the total and divide it by the number and just multiply it by the index. And so now each letter is going to have a different variable of hue, and it's going to be in different spaces all around the 360 degrees. Yeah, so we have a variable called hue. Okay, so we're actually going to have a color, and we're going to do HSL. Yeah, var of hue, and 75%, 75%. You can play around with this, obviously. And now we have a colorful text. And it looks nice because the width of each panel is like 21 pixels, so it's really small. And we can actually, as we said, we can actually interact with each one of them individually. So let's say here in the panel, let's say here we do a panel hover, for example, and we can add a transform. Let's say translate. No, let's do a scale. It's just for demonstration of 1.5. So now when I hover them, you can.
Yeah.
So again, make have your imagination run wild. You can have a lot of things doing with that. By the way, this the hover effect, I actually use it to do something like this one. You can actually see the panels. This is exactly the same concept as we've seen right now. Just looks nicer.
That's so cool.
Thanks. And one more thing that we can do is obviously add animation. We can play around with different animation for each segment. So let's add here in the panel animation. Let's call it rotate. So let's say panel rotate, let's say it's 6 seconds, infinite, and let's say is in out. Let's add a keyframes of rotate. Let's say let's work on the x-axis, like toward us. Okay, so rotate x from 0 degrees. You actually don't have to add the from. It's going to work exactly the same without it. I just like, especially when I'm doing videos, I just, for readability purposes, I just like to edit on. So now we can see it rotate. First of all, we don't see the direction it rotates because we don't have perspective. So let's add a perspective. Let's do a small one, 500 pixels.
So the perspective is sort of like the angle we're looking at it from, right?
Yeah,
or the distance away we are.
It's the distance we are from the center of the axis.
Perfect.
So we're 500 pixels away, so everything's look. If you can see that the top goes to the back, so it looks smaller, and the front goes bigger. Actually, I wanted to pause for a second, so instead, let's do 0% to like 80%, 100%, and no, let's do 70. So now it rotates for 70% of the time, and for the last 30%, it stands still. And now what we can do is actually add delay. So let's say that the delay is the index number time 0.1 second. Okay, so we can come now here to the animation and add the delay. And now it looks like so.
That's so cool.
Actually, let's, instead of one rotation, let's have it make 2 rotations, so 720 degrees. And yeah, it looks much better. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, one more change I want to do. So I said that the animation pauses for 30% of the time, right? So let's divide it in half, and so it's 15%, and let's have the 15% in the start and then 15% in the end. So now it pauses for 15% in the start and 15% in the end. And because the pauses is equal, we can actually come here and add alternate.
Oh, nice, yes.
And actually, because it's an alternate, we can, let's make it a smaller pause. So now, so now it's going to change in one direction, and then it's going to pause for a second and do the second direction. I actually like this one.
That's really cool. That's so much fun.
Yeah, so it's so much fun, but we're going to have to delete everything because the next step is actually to do what we're here to do, is to wrap the text around something. So okay, so now we're in a different pen. We saved the last one, so here we can start to delete a lot of things. We actually need to delete all the animation. We don't need the animation anymore. We don't need the keyframes anymore. We obviously don't need delay. Let's save the hue for now, okay? And just so we can see the panel, we're not going to use the border, because when we use the border, it shifts a bit, the 1 pixel of the border. So just so we can see it, let's add a white background, very with low opacity. You will see why I use low opacity in a second. So we need to wrap each panel. Forget about the text. We saw that the text adjusts itself to the panel. So we need to set each panel around the center of the axis. So in order to do it, first we're gonna put each panel in the position absolute, okay, and we're gonna translate it into center. Okay, then we're going to rotate each panel a different angle
Okay.
according to the angle it's supposed to be, and then we're going to shift it. We're going to translate it on the z-axis because every time it's on a different z-axis in a different in equal space from the center. Okay, I hope I was
It
pretty
makes
clear.
sense. Yeah, it makes sense to me. We'll see. So I guess for that, you're just using our loop again, right? So just to
Yeah,
make
so
it,
we
yeah.
have here in the loop, we actually need just an angle, and it's very similar to the hue, just 360 degrees. Excuse me. We'll add the unit here and divide by 24. Uh, oops. Yeah, so back, we said that, okay, so now we have a position absolute, and we can see that all of the panels are right one on top of each other because they're all position absolute.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have a transform of translate. We're going to translate them back to the middle, so it's -50%, -50%, because again, we're going to maybe going to change the size and height of the panels later on, so we're going to use it like that. And then we said we're going to rotate it. We're going to, of course, rotate it around the y-axis. This is the y-axis. We're going to rotate it around the y-axis. Angle. And so if you're going to leave it like so you can see everything is, you can see it, but it's like everything is around each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to use a translate of z, send backwards. And now the question is how much? So again, we can use lots of math to get the precise number, or a lot of trials and errors. So let's say like 150 pixels. Uh, eh, yeah, that's. Not, oh, you know what? We actually need. Let's do something before that. There was a step I forgot. So let's, for a second, let's put it in the position relative again. Yeah, and let's add more text because I wanted the panel to be longer. So let's just add more text here. Um, yeah, so hello world. Nice day. Okay. Of course,
Oh,
we need. Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, so the text is all over here. So let's leave the font the same size, but let's make the panels, let's say 50, 50 pixels. Yeah, that looks about right. So now let's back to position absolute. We don't need the relative anymore. Uh, Yeah. So now you can see why I used the opacity on the panels, because when you see the two panels intersecting each other, so you know that the number is too small.
Mm-hmm.
If I put a bigger number, so you can see that the gaps are darker, so you know you need to put a smaller number. Okay. So I did the math before, and it's 190. So now you can see that the panels you can almost if it's too much, like 189, you can still see the lines. You see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So 190 is it's the closest one. And of course, we forgot to add to the banner transform style, because you see the text. The text is like the back side is in front of the front
Yep.
side. Yeah, so we needed the transform style, preserve 3D. Yeah, so now you see it actually preserves the dimension, the 3D dimensions of the world. So the front goes to the front. And actually, we want to look at it from the top. So let's add perspective origin. Maybe you remember how to look at it from the top?
Positive value.
50% calc. So 50% is the x because we want to stay in the middle,
Yeah.
and then we want to in the center
Move
in the y. So let's say 50% minus, I don't know, 100 pixels. So yeah, we're actually gonna do a bit more. Yeah, and we can forget about the background. So now we can see it's wrapping, and we can actually add an animation. So let's add the animation right here to the banner because we want it to rotate. Animation, rotate. This one, let's make it slower. Let's make it 30 seconds. Let's make it 24 seconds. Infinite and linear because we want the rotation to be linear. Again, not here. Keyframes, rotate. Let's just make to transform. Yeah. So now, rotating to the wrong side, minus 360 degrees, and yeah, and now it rotates to the right side. So this is just an example of what you can do with it. We've seen some example where you use it to wrap text around things, but you can actually take it to the next level, like the Hoover effect I show you. Like this flag actually uses the exact same concept. It divides into panels, and each panel has a different animation on it, and the text just looks as a single piece. And again, you can actually animate the text.
For something like that, so yeah, you're dividing it both ways. Like you almost have to have the same thing set up over multiple.
Actually, here it's very long panels, and the line.
Oh, okay, cool. Right. Yep.
But if we see like here, so
Wow.
when you click, so it breaks, and so it has 3 lines, and the text here it's divided into X and Y. And this, I don't know if you remember this one. So
yes, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, when you open, you can see that the text inside is actually it's also an after text. Just because I want to break it down, it's 3 panels. It's the same concept. And by the way, this is a very different method. I just wanted to show how you can actually animate the text. So you can actually use keyframes to animate the content of the pseudo element. So again, this is a completely different method, but you can use this animation on something like that, for example. Last thing I want to talk about when we are doing 3D animations, and we see the back of certain elements. So sometimes we want the back of the elements to be like darker or looks like I don't know, more, to bring the front more to stand out. So there's actually a couple of ways to do them. It's like 3 normal ways to do it. First one is to use for each panel or for each element another element, like another pseudo element, like we used it before, so to use it after, and to put it behind it, and to add like a certain black opacity on it. So here it's not going to work very good because we have overflow hidden on the element, so you can't. But in certain situation, you can do it. The second method is to just use animation. So when the certain panel goes to the specific space, make it darker or make it more to increase its opacity or whatever. So it's a bit difficult. It uses a lot of math, and in some cases it works great. It can work here, but we're not going to do it here. The third method, and which is the easiest way, is just to put a screen in the middle of the screen. Just put like a dark screen. So everything that is behind the screen, which is normally the back side of elements, like here, it's going to look darker, and everything in front going to look lighter. So it's pretty easy to do it. All we need to do is to come here and add a div of screen. Okay, and we're actually gonna wrap both of them in a scene, because so it would be easier. And we actually need to have the scene needs to have a position relative, so everything's going to be relative to the scene. So let's go here to the screen, and obviously it's going to be position absolute. Let's have a width. So we said we moved each panel 190 pixels to each side. So the width of the circle, it's 380 pixels. So let's make this one 400 pixels, just a bit wider. Okay, so 400 pixel, and the height is, let's say, the same, 400 pixels. Just so we can see it, let's make it red. And let's, of course, yeah, so now it covers everything, obviously. First of all, let's add, we're gonna need to add, oops, sorry,
That's okay.
I kind of lost it. This one to here also. So it will preserve both of them. Yeah.
See,
so
I had a few, because I'm so used to just layering things with like Z-index and stuff, and I'm not into like the 3D world. So I was thinking like there must be something with, because we have we're using the transform on the Z-axis, that it's going to work. But just doing that is enough, which is, I was expecting a lot more work to try and get it to be like in the middle, but it looks like,
because we added another container, a scene.
Yes,
and
yeah.
we need the scene to preserve the same 3D elements of because we gave the perspective to the body. If you gave the perspective to the scene or to the banner, well, it would work. So again, it's obviously not, it don't need to be red. It could be just like black, or like a black with a certain opacity. Which would already be a step up. Okay, and you can play around with the opacity, of course, for as much as you want. But actually, we can also use a background image and use linear gradient. And we're going to start with the color with the higher opacity on the sides, and and the lower opacity, like a darker screen in the middle. So let's say 3. And so we can have this nice, we don't have a nice fade. Oh, I forgot. The linear gradient is from top
that's
to
right,
bottom.
yeah.
It's supposed to be 90 degrees. Sorry, forgot it. 90 degrees. Yeah. So yes, but again, I like those little things that make a difference. And again, we can play around with it. We can play with the colors and whatever you want. Just those nice little touches that I like to add. Hope that that some guys would see it's really not complex, and will have some tips and advice, and take these ideas and take it forward. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And that's actually what I was sort of thinking as we were going through this and you were showing those other examples. I think it'd be really cool if people would sort of either fork what we're working on here or come up with their own ideas and share them with us. And definitely, if you guys create anything, no matter how simple or complex it is, if you're just jumping in.
I would love to see them. Yeah, please send them and upload them on Twitter and tag me on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. tag me and Amit, and his Twitter's down in the description below. So definitely share everything you can come up with, and any experiment, no matter how small or big, with any of this stuff. And if you really enjoyed that and you haven't yet seen the spinning thing with the ball bouncing on top of it, and you'd like to check that one out, you can see that video right here. And if you want to see something that I did all on my own with 3D stuff a little while ago, I actually made this 3D spinning card thing. So if you want to check that one out, it is right here for you to check out. And with that, a really big thank you to my supporters of Awesome over on Patreon, Stuart and Randy, as well as all my other patrons for their monthly support. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your core on the internet just a little bit more awesome.